Hello and welcome to Talk Game. It's a match preview of the cup game between West Ham United against Spurs at the London Stadium. The NFL rented pitch is coming to play at the can't see the very pitch that's also rented. Gonzo, it's the League Cup. Do Spurs need to take this seriously? On one hand, they're hanging on Champions League by a thread. The top six or top five, you don't want to include Man U, are really battling out for top four this season, but they need a cup.
They do. I think possibly their arrogance will lead them to believe that they don't need this game and they don't need that cup, because obviously they've got sort of lofty ideas of grandeur. They think they're a top European club, so they need the League Cup, but they'll think they should be winning the Champions League and winning the Premier League, and that's obviously their ambition with the move to the new stadium and whatnot. But I think they are thinking bigger, and hopefully they take it lightly.
Who's arrogance, Gonzo? Who's they when you say they're arrogance?
All of them, mate. All of them. Levy, not Pochettino. Actually, Pochettino seems like a good manager. You know, he seems like a humble man, which is probably why he'll be on his way soon enough, particularly with Real Madrid doing as poorly as they are. But the fans in particular, are particularly nauseating. And it's not just recently, they've always fancied themselves to be a big club. Even when there was a 10-year period when they sort of had 35,000 fans, we had 35,000 fans, and there was nothing between the clubs in terms of league finishes. We would dip down to a lower league, but and Arsenal had the whatever they were called, the unbeatables or the undefeatables or whatever it was. Yet Tottenham at that time seemed to see themselves on a level par with Arsenal and Manchester United and Chelsea once Abramovich came in, and they just weren't. They've just always seen themselves as a little bit better than they actually are, and they have performed better. They really have. They have sort of elevated themselves to become a top six club, and in the last couple of years maybe a top four club, but they're not eating at the top table just yet. But I think the fans just really fancy themselves. They love themselves.
Gonzo, you said Pochettino's the one that isn't arrogant. If he puts out an under-strength side against us, what is that? Is that arrogance, or what does that mean?
It's just a manager who probably he needs to do well in Europe, and they're close. They're close in the Premier League. Are they as good as Liverpool and Manchester City? No, they're not. But they are close, and they've had a good start to the season. Obviously tonight, that's dented that a little bit. Would it be? I don't even care whether it's arrogance or whether it's not. It would be sensible, because they have got 3 games in a week, and I think straight away after that, I think they've got them PSV as well. So the fixture congestion is really, really tight for them. What does worry me though is I think in that game I did watch a little bit of the NFL when it was on, and it couldn't have been easy to play on that pitch, by the way. I don't know, not just because it was horrible, wasn't it? It was all churned up, but it was hard to see the markings of the pitch. A couple of times I thought, oh, that's gone out for a throw-in, but actually I didn't know those were that was the edge of the gridiron pitch, so to speak. But he brought on Eriksson late, and I think he brought on Dele Alli late, which made me think, hold on, he's not planning on playing them, because they are dangerous players. They've got good players, so hopefully he's going to put out a second string.
Charlie, you sat there for a while Gonzo went fishing. What about yourself? Do you think Spurs need to take this cup seriously, Charlie, or are you an arrogant Spurs fan in disguise that think this is above them or below them? Sorry.
Thanks for that. Just put me in the corner. It's calm. I don't mind about it. The truth is, if I'm a Tottenham fan, I just look at it and I say, do you know what? We've got bigger fish to fry. If their true ambitions as a club are to compete in the Champions League and then to compete at the top echelons of the Premier League, then the truth is in the situation they're in the Champions League now, they have to put every resource into that if they've got any hope of not dropping down to the Europa League and then everyone laughing in their faces. And then they also have to compete at the Premier League. And so for them, if I'm them and they put out a second string side, I wouldn't be that fussed. I wouldn't be surprised. But the truth is that you look at Spurs' squad, and although it is thin and it is small, every single player in that team is a very, very capable player. Apart from, I would have said Sissoko, but then he basically waltzed past some of our players last time he faced them. So I think for them, they can afford to put out a second string side, as it were, and it still be a capable side, capable of doing something very dangerous to us.
I think a couple of weeks ago, I would have said Spurs need to sort of shrug this one off a little bit. But the reality is their Champions League's now hanging on by a thread after that late goal over in Holland. And I think they need to be a little bit realistic and say that the chances of them progressing in Champions League to the knockout stages are quite thin right now. Right now in the League Cup, they're a few games away from winning a trophy. They need trophies over at Spurs right now. It doesn't matter what trophy they get. Obviously, they want the Champions League or the title, but I think they need to be a little bit realistic and think actually the League Cup is probably the most winnable one. Then it's the Europa League one, should they finish third in the group and get into Europa League. But I don't necessarily agree with what Gonzo said. There's a lot of arrogant Spurs fans out there, but there's also a lot of realistic ones as well. Because I was reading the forum earlier tonight, the Fighting Cock one, and a lot of them were saying, we need this cup. It's the cup. We need to get this cup. They need to get something. And I'm surprised that Pochettino's lined up against Spurs tonight, actually. For you who haven't watched, Dele Alli and Eriksson are both come back from injury, so they were on the bench and they only got about 10, 15 minutes each at the end of the game. Son didn't come on. Harry Winks was also on the bench, came on, and he ran the game against us at the London Stadium a couple of weeks ago, and he looked good when he came on tonight. He changed the game. Gonzo, does it concern you, Pochettino's lineup tonight compared to what we might be expecting on Wednesday? Does this mean, should he be risking half-fit Dele Alli and half-fit Eriksson against us on Wednesday night?
Well, I would think not, looking at the bigger picture as we just discussed for him. But it was a worry for me. I mean, West Ham have got every chance. We'll discuss our team in a minute, I'm sure. But if we put out a strong team, we've got every chance of beating a second-string Tottenham. You start to worry when someone like Eriksson in particular comes into the team. And I thought Dele Alli looked sharp as well when he came on. He looked sharp and he looked up for it. It's a worry. He shouldn't be doing it. Is he just... Because I think they play Wolves. I think the key is they don't just play Wolves at the weekend. They play Wolves on Friday. So, this is really tough for him to play on Monday. And I've got to say this, for all me winding them up and all that, the fixture's been cruel to them to play on a Friday, to play on a Monday, to play on a Wednesday, and then play on a Friday. It's horrendous, really. So maybe he is just easing them in so they play against Wolves, which is the big one, and it is the important game for him.
Charlie, what about yourself? I mean, do you feel the fact that the lineup tonight didn't consist of those big names? I mean, it's hard to gauge what Pochettino is going to do. I was expecting Son to play tonight. I was expecting Eriksson to play because he's been, maybe not Ali, but Eriksson has been back. I mean, also on the other hand, Charlie, can you usually a League Cup game, you say that's the right game to get your half-fit players and get them game time, etc. But Spurs' circumstances are pretty unique.
Yeah, and I think that I think they will feature at some point. If they don't start, they will come off the bench to be eased in, like we've been saying. I think that is a very, very high possibility of that. And let's be honest, if you're us, we're not going to be, I don't think, in a situation where we're at half time, we're 3-0 ahead of them. I don't think that's a possibility. If we're, say, 1-0 ahead of them and they come on, that's still a very, very frightening prospect for the remaining 45 minutes to have to deal with players of that quality, if half fit or not. And so this is the right game to continue to ease them back in. If I'm Pochettino, I don't just throw them to the dogs, in a sense, because although the last London derby we had wasn't exactly a feisty game, they can be feisty fixtures. And if all it takes is one dodgy thing, as we've seen with Arnautovic, one just little niggle here, one little niggle there, and they're out for a huge period. And for them, those two players specifically that we've mentioned are huge, huge players for them. And so for Tottenham, I ease them back in slightly. I give them half an hour, give them maybe 45 minutes in the cup, but I don't start them.
Interesting, but we're talking about West Ham now, because while Spurs are having a field and under strength side, so are West Ham United. Injuries are forcing, fixtures are forcing Spurs' hand, injuries are forcing ours. And just to correct Gonzo there, if Spurs are not playing on Friday night, they're actually playing Saturday night, 7:45 to 8 p.m. kickoff, though, hence probably Gonzo's confusion there. If it's a strange kickoff for Saturday, they're actually playing on Saturday against Wolves. The boats are running on Wednesday night before the game at the London Stadium. They open at 4:45. If you wish to get your ticket to go along for a beer and a burger before the game, the link is in the description below on YouTube on this very channel here. Gonzo, our team, League Cup, do you want to see players rotated? Well, I know you're going to say no, but the league's not going to plan so far, though, is it?
A couple, Gio, a couple. But yes, I want to see a very, very strong team. And I think it's important that we take this seriously. We spoke about Tottenham in terms of their players, but also let's not forget that actually what the fixture list, not just on fatigue, what it has in terms of attitude. The Tottenham players that play, is their mind going to be on the Wolves game and then the Champions League game? How motivated are they for this? Let's say they're 90% motivated. That's enough. It's a 10% foot off your accelerator is enough for us to get in there. And I think we have to take it very, very seriously. So I would understand if we might want to give Zabaleta a rest and a couple other things. But I think in the main, we go with the strongest possible team.
Is there anyone else you'd give a rest apart from Zabaleta? I can understand why you'd give him that, because then you've got Fredericks to come in as a natural replacement. But is there anyone else that you would...
Well, yeah, it's probably easier who I don't want to. I don't want him to muck around with a goalkeeper. Adrian, lovely man, blah, blah, blah. Fabianski's in great form. We keep Fabianski there and we keep the 2 centre-backs there. We just have to, because they're such an asset to us. They're building a really, really good partnership. And we seem to be playing this offside trap as well. Well, that only gets better the more you play it, which I know would be a reason to keep Zabaleta in, but we are dealing with someone who is probably going to struggle with consecutive games in a short period. So we take him out. But in the main, I think you've got to keep the spine and the core of the team. We're already having Mark Noble out there, and he's a big one. Mark Noble's a big one for London derbies, who gets the players fired up and all the rest of it. So we're already missing him. I'd keep the 2 centre-backs the same. If we maybe Cresswell for Masuaku or something, possibly, but I wouldn't change a lot.
Gonzo, you mentioned there, Mark Noble suspended. Obiang expected to be back, but let's say Obiang isn't back, or even if he is, he's only going to be half fit. Who do you replace Mark Noble with? There's not a lot of options. Our best options on loan at Fiorentina, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, that would be a terrible thing. I can't even begin. I can't even begin to think what we would do then. I guess we'd have to play a midfield 2, a central midfield 2 of Snodgrass and Rice, which would not be what we want to do. And I guess he'd have to almost go a 4-4-2 or something like that. Maybe he would draft Anderson into play as a number 10, so there were technically 3 players in the middle, and play with 2 strikers. But see, Spurs are not going to play with 2 strikers, largely because they don't have 2 strikers. They will pack the midfield, and we're going to have to match up there. So it ain't worth thinking about. We better make sure Obiang's fit, because we're in trouble if he's not. Would
you play Coventry in centre midfield, Gonzo? Is this too big a fixture for him?
Well, I was just thinking about it earlier, actually, and it's a little bit of a shame with us because we've got lots of good players in the youth academies. We've seen young Dianganas come through, and we're good at centre-back. We've got Pask and Oxford, and we're strong in a lot of positions. But what we sort of lack in the under-23s or under-18s or whatever is a dominant, and I mean a dominant, big, athletic midfielder. And I think that's what we probably need in there. Coventry's a good player, and will possibly do a job in there. I just wonder if the decision to loan Cullen out we might well regret that in this one if Obiang's out.
Charlie, what about yourself? Would you be bringing the changes for this one? You're a bit more of a fan of rotation than me and Gonzo, I think. Well, I can be sometimes. Or would you be sticking with our first 11 as much as possible for this game?
I'm a fan of rotation more than I'm a fan of changing the system. And I think this is our system, and we should stick to that as much as we can, especially like with the tactical setups, with the high line and stuff like that. So the people involved in that, aka the centre-backs, Declan Rice, Fabianski, people like that, I think need to stay together, because we're actually forming a core group of players who know each other. And we've spoken about it as well. The partnership between Diop and Balbuena is so good that I think just dropping them and changing someone else is just a mistake at this point. We should be building for the future. I would keep the formation the same and then change some of the people in. So, for example, with Noble, Coventry was the person I would probably go for. I think there's a reason he was included on the bench, not just because we have no people, but if he's good enough to be on the bench, then he's good enough to play a game. And I think we need to keep that system together, and he could potentially make that work. It's a London derby, it's a good thing, but it worked for Diangana. Why can't it work for him? And there's Gonzo spoke about it, like the people in the youth academy. Cullen is basically as close to Noble as you're going to get, so it's unfortunate he isn't here. Fernandez would be another lovely replacement, but there's a reason why these people are here. Everyone complains when people get injured and there's a perceived lack of squad depth, but if we're not using the youth players, then what the hell are they there for? They might as well just go to whoever. So give him a shot and see what happens, because I think we could be pleasantly surprised. It's a risk, but why not? It is basically my option.
I agree with you about the diamond of Fabianski, Balbuena, Diop and Rice. I would keep that diamond. That's the first 4 on the team sheet for me every week now. I would change Fredericks as well, like Gonzo suggested. but only so I could put Zabaleta in Martin Noble's role with the captain's armband on as well. I don't care Marko Navic on the pitch. Zabaleta is my vice captain by a country mile. I'd have him in there because while he's getting old, I've got no. While people use that thing, his legs are gone. I don't think they're referring to his fitness. It's just about his pace, etc. He's still fit, and I do think he would do a job in there. This isn't the middle of December where you've got a midweek game maybe 2-3 weeks in a row. This is just a one-off midweek game, and I think we need to stick to our main 11 as much as possible. Unfortunately, that means Antonio and Perez, who are probably expecting to start. I probably wouldn't start either. I would stick with Diagana. He did well against Spurs when he came on. I thought he did well against Leicester. He was up against one of the best left-backs in the league, in my opinion. I thought he did really well. And I think I would have him starting against Burnley, up against a side really low in confidence. But in order to get him to start against Burnley, I'd keep him in for this one just to keep the momentum of Diagana going, let him learn how to play with certain players around about him. But that leaves the striker role, Gonzo. Anatovic is expected to be fit. And when I say fit, over his illness, but he's still got a niggly knee injury. Would you risk him for this one, or would you wrap him up in cotton wool?
Oh, if I could only play him in one game, it would be the League Cup game rather than the game against Burnley. I have to say, I absolutely. This is an opportunity not to be missed here. You want to imagine if we beat Tottenham and then we're through to the next round of the Cup, it will be a huge boost to the club. It'd be a huge boost to the team, a huge lift to everyone. We'd actually start to get some belief. And I know maybe the late equaliser with Leicester was a sucker punch, but something seems to be happening, and it's happening. It's evolution rather than revolution. It's happening slowly. We're starting to get a shape. Pellegrini wasn't known for his defensive solidity, but we seem to have a couple of defenders who have been purchased very, very wisely. Look very good. Rice is really coming of age. The system, there's an offside trap, and there are nuggets of encouragement to take. We can see that actually we have a way of playing and there's a path forward. And I just think it's an opportunity not to be missed. So Arnautovic I would include in it. I would play him because regardless of who Tottenham plays, even if they're taking their foot off a little bit, they got their eye on PSV or they got their eye on Wolves. It's enough. It's enough for us to grasp the nettle, you know.
Charlie, what's more important in your opinion, this game against Spurs or 3 points against Burnley on Saturday, given how our league form's going?
This game. I think when you look in, both because I think I rate the EFL Cup, as it's now known, just as like Mourinho always talks about it, about how he loves his teams winning them because it sets them up for an amazing end of the season because everyone's got confidence and everyone's playing well. Also, winning a cup is great, but if you look at the games we've got up until January, there's a lot of very, very, very winnable games. The glory of having that tough period now, we've sort of weathered it and gone through it and come out of it not well, but not exactly as bad as other teams have, is we've now got a run of really winnable fixtures that can boost our confidence. And if we win against, it's not just a win in the cup and going through to the next round, it's also a win against Tottenham, who are one of the best sides in the division. And if you win then you can go into next games and go, actually, yeah, we can beat that side. We can beat that side. We can do this. And so for me, this is more important than the game of the weekend. If we go through here but get beat at the weekend, I won't be as upset as I would be if we lost here and then drew against Burnley or whatever it would be.
I have to agree. This is our biggest game so far this season for me. It's as simple as that. It's going to be the biggest game of the season so far until we play in the quarterfinal of the League Cup as well, should we get there. It just gives you momentum for against Burnley as well. If we've seen the repercussions of Wembley last season when we beat them at Wembley in this competition. Bilic managed to save his job for 2-3 games off the back of it. But then when David Moyes came in and he threw the cup away against Arsenal, the following game at the weekend, we got beat at home to Newcastle, and just shows the difference of attitude and what the League Cup can actually do as well. And people might dismiss it a little bit like Moyes did. Actually, it does have a knock-on effect going into your weekend. Your players' confidence are affected. Your players' morale is affected. The crowd's morale is affected. And if you want a place buzzing against Burnley, which is not the most glamorous of fixtures on paper, then beat Spurs on the Wednesday night. And on the Saturday, that place will be buzzing against Burnley. Not because we're away to play Burnley, but because of what happened literally 3 days beforehand. Gonzo, are you confident for this one?
Yeah, I think I am, mate. I think I am. As we said, I think seeing Eriksson and Dele Alli being rested has dented my confidence slightly. But I do feel that. I feel more confident. I feel confident in almost everything we do now. I don't feel like we're going to get thrashed 5-0 and stuff like that anymore. I feel that we are going to have some possession. We are going to control the ball, and if a team attacks us, we're going to withstand it. And they've been in a tough game, scrappy game. It wasn't the best of games tonight against Manchester City, but they've been involved in a tough game, and they are contesting a top four. Top four is so important to Tottenham, not just. This is the thing, you spoke about glory earlier. Do the club need the glory of the cup? Should they be chasing that? Yes, they should, but do they need top four? Crikey, they do. They've saddled themselves with debt, a lot of debt over that stadium. The money's gone up and up and up for it. So the focus on them getting top four and being in a knockout at the Champions League is absolutely huge for them. And I think that their eye taking her off the ball has given me a bit of confidence as well.
Charlie, confident?
More so than I was in the league fixture, definitely. I do think they are going to rotate some people, and as Gonzo said, if they're 10% off their game thinking about something else, then that gives us an even better opportunity. So I'm much, much more confident about this one than I was versus the league game, where I had no confidence really going into it at all.
I have to agree. I've got a little bit of confidence going into this one as well. I think what we've seen against Leicester, we saw a very sturdy defensive display. The game tonight, Gonzo's mentioned the pitch tonight, it was bobbly as hell, etc. That takes a lot out of you as a footballer. It takes a lot of your legs. You probably use a lot more energy on a pitch like that than you would on a nice playing surface, for example. It wasn't easy for Spurs to play on. You could see everybody on the pitch getting frustrated. Pep ended up taking Aguero off. It could have been tactical, but I think he'd almost thought, fuck it, this pitch ain't good for playing football, and I'm just going to pack the midfield out here and see out this 1-0 win. And I think that's going to have a knock-on effect. I don't think he'll start Ali. I think he might start Eriksson. He might start Son. But the funny thing is, it might mean he drops Lamela, who I thought was Spurs' most dangerous player tonight and against us at the London Stadium a couple of weeks ago. I thought he was their most dangerous player in the final third. So it might actually benefit us having a half-fit Eriksson on the pitch rather than Lamela, for example. Final word is going to come back and haunt me. I'm aware of that. But Gonzo, we're all reasonably confident. Just so you guys at home know, if this game's a draw, it goes straight to penalties. There is no extra time anymore in the League Cup. And also, video assistant referee is in place for this game. It's in place for all League Cup games at a Premier League ground. So we've got that screen there if we need it, Gonzo. But here to give me a prediction. If you're going to go for a draw, can you give me your prediction for the penalty shootout, please?
No draw. That'd be very exciting to go through on penalties. I think we would win. I think we win in extra. I think we win in normal time 2-0. 2-0,
Charlie.
I'm the opposite. I do think it's going to be a draw. I think it will be 2-2, and then we'll win on penalties. I've just got faith in us for some reason.
Ooh, pens. They make me nervous. But we've got Adrian and go for the penalties because that's what Pellegrini's going to do. So that's always good. I'm going to go for 1-0 West Ham. I think our defensive display will continue, but I just hope he doesn't change it too much at the back, and I just hope he doesn't ring out the changes. But we'll wait and see what Pellegrini does. Anyway, that's been Charlie, that's been Gonzo, I've been Jill, we've been Hamish Chat. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. Subscribe if you're new around here. We'll be back on Wednesday night with our review of the game, and of course you can join me and Gonzo tomorrow night, which is Tuesday evening, as we will be having a little cup of tea and discussing the latest gossip surrounding West Ham, such as Issa Diop's £50 million move to PSG and some players that we have been linked with in January transfer window, including a Spurs centre midfielder.